We ended last session with the this particular slide, which talks about the MRP. So we discuss about the product. So the product is the parent component, and then it could have multiple or single as a component. So for example, sub assembly one and sub assembly two are the level one, and then component one and raw material one are the level two items. So it ends where like company started the buying directly those materials from the outside, where that bill of material will end. So sub-assembly one and will be as I mentioned in this supply planning or demand planning. Supply planning is all about like what to produce at what time of produce, what time of time frame we need to produce, where to produce, and what kind of raw materials or components are required. So those are really complex calculations depending upon the your bill of material and the product complexity. So where MRP comes into the picture and helps us to, depending upon the demand of the product, at what point of time we should be assembling the sub-assembly 1 and 2. They might have some lead time, the capacity constraints. Again, the component 1 might be we need to purchase from the some other supplier. Raw material will be purchased by some other supplier. So we need to understand how much we need to produce. We need to consider the stock we had, and the supplier lead time, supplier consent, what quantity he is selling. Might be we require 10 products, 10 component one, but the supplier might be selling at a time in a group of 25 components, or something like that. So pallet size or unit load. So that's all those factors MRP considers while generating the supply plan. So I will just talk about the now the material requirement planning. What is MRP? It's like set of technique that uses bill of material, hands-on inventory data, a master production schedule to calculate the requirements of the material. So basically, it tells us when, what, and how much we need to produce or procure from our suppliers. What are the different functions of the MRP? So how it helps us? It helps to plan and control the inventories, item quantity and time frame. It plan and control the order releases to ensure delivery date and the maintain a valid due date. What is due date? It's something we promise to our customers. Okay, your product would be available on so and so date, and how it generated based on the plan. We do the plan order for the production, or in case of purchase order, we procure the products from the outside of our organization. So all those things are managed and controlled by the MRP. It provides accurate input regarding the plan orders for the capacity planning. So that's also one of the important aspect of the capacity planning. So capacity is always finite. We cannot say, or any organization cannot say, I have infinite capacity to produce whatever the items in given time frame. So when companies are planning their products, they also need to consider how much capacity they are having. So MRP also has one of the core component as a capacity planning. It could be the machine capacity, it could be the labor capacity, or it could be any other constraints which are limiting the production of the goods. What are the benefits? It reduces the inventory by phasing itemized inventory with the production needs. So it it it's asked us to produce the goods depending upon the lead time and depending upon the required time. So it doesn't produce the goods in advance and just keep on the inventory, blocking the working capital. So produce in quantity required and when it is required. So that's what in this essence about the MRP. So what are the inputs MRP is using? It using the master production schedule. It uses the bill of material, inventory on hands, and the planning factors. So I just mentioned about the planning factors. It's like lot size or order quantity. Like might be some products are produced in a lot of 25 or 50. So those things need to be considered. What is the lead time for the production or the purchasing? Transit lead time. What is the safety stock we are considering? Because might be some there are some constraints, or the items are very volatile in terms of demand or availability. And then we also need to consider the scrap factor, because when we produce the good, there are certainly scraps happen. Some of the components are likely to scrap a bit depending upon the capabilities of the machines or the labor. And then it gives the output as a like schedule of the planned production order or the purchase orders, so that we can commit to the our customers, or maybe we also can coordinate with our suppliers to get those items well in time, so that our machines don't stop. It also gives us about some of the action messages which as a planner we need to take, or to ensure that our plan is valid. And then some of the factors. Yeah. uh, what is the one of the benefit, as I mentioned, like increase customer service in the end revenue, and the decrease cost of change your, because as you do the change yours, it decreases the overall capacity of the machines and the labors as well. So how MRP basically works? So I have taken an example just to explain. So this is a basically MRP grid. It looks like, so we have the parent, the product B, which need to be sold to the customer, and this is the bill of material. So it has component C, which like to produce a B, we require two component of C, while we require one component of D. And to produce C, we require one component of E and one component of F. So this is multi-level bill of material, or you can say, since it has two levels, you can say two level of bill of material. To produce D, we require two components of E and one component of G. So assume like our customer has a requirement of gross requirement is of 100. We do not have any scheduled receipts plan, and we do not have any projected available balance. So our net requirements is 100. So since our net requirements are 100, we need to have the plan order receipts 100. As I mentioned, like lead time is 1 week. So we need to produce in week 4, so that goods will be available for the customer to sell in week 5. The requirement is in the week 5. Now, how MRP back calculates all those things? So, for example, since we require a two component of C to produce B, what MRP does, it gives the gross requirement for the item C is 200, which is the double of the gross requirement of the B. Then, as we are expecting, like we will have the scheduled requirements 100, and then it makes our like projected available is 100. Our net requirement reduces to 100, because since we already having 200 available by the manufacturing process or some of the receipts, we will need to require only 100 items of the C. So what we do, so we release the planner does like release the plan order in the earlier week 3, so that because the lead time is only 1 week, and then the because of the production lead time is 1 week, it we will be having the plan order receipt 100. By this way, it works for each and every individual items, and on multiple levels. uh, Everybody understand? Any questions on this? So basically it back calculates the requirement for each and individual items.
Mohan, in case of atom B, in fourth column, plan order release, it is that 100 quantity that not understood. Can you please explain this?
This one.
This one, that one, right?
Okay, so what it mean? So look, the item B, as a manufacturer, he need to produce in the factory. Okay, so to produce B, produce B. The lead time for the production is 1 week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the if he need to have available, because if it's the gross requirement is in the week 5, so he need to, since the lead time is 1 week, he need to start the production in the week 4. To start the week
Oh,
to start the production in the week 4, he need to release the plan order. The planner need to release the order which gives the information to the production. Okay, this particular item needs to be produced in this week, and it is the lead time for this particular week. So they understand if they release the. Can someone mute this? I think it's getting disturbed. Thanks. So he releases the plan order in the week 4, and because the production get to know, okay, they need to produce like 100 items for the week B, for the item B. They produce the 100 items, and then it gets available as per the customer requirement in the week 5. Are you clear?
Yeah, yeah, got it, Mohan. Thanks.
Yeah. So you see the how much it, and the complexity start building once you had the multiple bill of material. Many companies started like they do the in-house assembly. Specifically, if you go to the automobile section, I think Kedar can add because he have worked in the automobile industry. So there are various assembly they do manufacture in the in-house. So
Yeah,
and it becomes very complex when they need to have those lead times or the quantities required to have in the plant. So that's why companies are using ERPs to have this calculations available, or the plan order releases or the purchase order releases on time.
yeah. Uh, you're right, Mohan. I mean, what we had, like when you're manufacturing a car, for an example, um, you have independent demand, like two types of demand, right? Independent
Yes.
demand and dependent demand. So a car has a demand on its own. If independent demand can be forecasted, all the other demand that is dependent is usually in a bill of material. So car is made of seats and it's made of steering wheel and engine. I was a supplier for automaker which made seats. Even the seat has a dependent demand on how many cars were being asked for in the market. So we had a very calculated demand. Each car only gets one driver seat, one passenger seat, and the rear seats. So depending on the different type of car that was in demand, we had to change the configuration of the seats based on if it's a Mercedes S class or if it's a
E-class.
Mercedes. Yeah, exactly. It's a SUV. So only those were the variations that we had to account for. And then if the options that somebody chose were a leather seat versus a cloth seat or a heated seat versus not, then the components changed in the seat. So a heated seat, you got a heat map. A heat mat that you can plug into using the wiring harness. So it draws more power. So it needed to be assembled at a certain step in our seat assembly process. So once you put the frame, then you put the wiring harness, and then you put the foam, and then you put the leather on top of it. So the sequence steps changed as well. So all that was communicated, but to order those parts from the suppliers of these components, uh, the overall material planning system that you showed in the earlier slide, the MPS, so it calculated the demand for the end items, which are the cars. I mean, for a supplier like us, it was the seats, different types of seats, and then it broke it down using the bill of material into the material requirement planning at component levels, and then it sent these component level quantities using the lead time. It sent it out to the suppliers. So we got that demand, and what Mohan is showing here is how, like the basics of what you need to know how to calculate it in Excel, for example, because those are the same things that you don't see um, inside SAP, for example. It you can change the factors, you can change the safety stocks and all, but in a sense, it's calculating it based on lead times and how many pieces per uh, bill of material it is. So yeah, we had um, pretty decent lead times on some suppliers that were in China had 30 days lead time, and some that were right next to us were like a week. So the variation in like when you order parts and how much safety stock you keep in house, that varied too. So it, it's pretty interesting.
Yes. Thanks, Kedar. So just maybe some of you might not aware about this, some of the uh, these keywords like gross requirement. It's straightforward, like how much customer wanted. The scheduled receipts is something like you might are expecting some of the orders from your other side, like receipts from the other sites. Projected available, like it shows like in week 1 or week 2 how much quantity would be available depending upon the scheduled receipts. Net requirement is something how much you require gross, and then you minus or deduct this projected available, which we will give the net requirement. Then this is interesting, plan order receipts and the plan order releases. So when you say the plan order releases, it's basically uh, you have order to the customers, and based on the, or maybe you want to produce in house, like in house, and depending upon the lead time you want, like since you want to supply or produce the item B in the week 4, you need to have the receipt from the supplier or the production site on the week 4. If it is the item C is available only in week 4, then only you could able to produce in the week 4 the item B, and then where item will get produced and they will start the production, and then it will be available for our customers in week 5. Now, to have the item C available in the week 4, you need to either produce or you need to purchase from the outside companies, and for which the lead time is 1 week, which I mentioned over here. And that's the reason either production planner has to given an indication to the production, which is generally done by the plan order, or if it is in supplier it is generally done to the purchase order, where they mention I want this particular item on so and so week, and they coordinate, and then they and that's like supplier or the production lead time is 1 week. He has to ensure that this gets started at the supplier end, or if it is in-house manufacturing, that production start the production of this particular item in the week 3. So how it basically goes forward. I hope it's clear. It's a bit of complex just for the if you're seeing this first time, but like I try to put in a very simplified and then using these simple numbers.
So, Mohan, if I may just quickly point out one thing here on the slide.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, like Madhukar, you were asking earlier, how is this table calculated? You see item number B in column and item number C. So B is on the top in the right tree, in the bill of material tree on the right hand side. That B is split into C and D, correct? Yeah. So that B has two parts of C and one part
Yes.
of D.
Yes.
Okay. Now B is the independent demand that's coming in. You can imagine that to be a car coming in. Like so, you need 100 of those, right? You show in table in week 5 that there was a demand of 100, right? Now above lead time of 1 week is given. In safety stock 0, allocated quantity 0, and lead time is 1 week. Since lead time is 1 week, when do you think the supplier needs it? That demand supplier needs, what does lead time mean? Lead time means it takes 1 week to get that part. So you need to order it 1 week earlier, right? So instead of week 5, you need to order it in week 4, right? But now how many do you need to make 100 of B? How many of C's do you need to manufacture 100 of B? The bill of material, you can see there are 2 of C's needed for 1B, right? So you need 200 to make 100 of B. Make sense? So those are your gross requirements that you can see in both of those lines. The first line of each, like uh, item B and item C.
Thanks, Kedar. Uh, Now I just given one exercise. I mean, I won't
Hey,
expect like
1 minute, Mohan. One
yeah,
question from Girish. Order release is always according to gross requirements. Is order release is always according to gross requirements.
order releases are based on the lead time and the lead time, the pallet size, the planning factor unit load, and the net requirement, not on the gross requirement. I hope, Girish, I answered your question. Okay, thanks. So I just build one small exercise for the audience, and I expect like if for item D, now you have saw here like uh, we want week 500 of B item B. Okay, now I want like if someone from audience or like all can help me to understand at what point of time uh, the plan order release should happen for the item D. When the plan order release should happen for the item, the component D over here, and how what is the quantity? Can someone help me here?
Same like C and quantity D. For quantity 100 is what Jagdish is saying.
Yeah, and which week
Yeah.
which week I should order to the supplier, or I should give indication to the production.
Bhagyashree is saying week 4.
I'm talking about release, order release. I will just get it back.
Third week.
Yes, you're right. Third week, because we want B item to be in a like 100, and then B D also has a like lead time of 1 week. So it should be available like similar to the item C in the week 4, but then it had like lead time 1 week. So it will be the week 3 where you should release or give indication to the production to start production of that particular item D. Now I will just try to bit of how industry works. Basically, it doesn't look it if it looks very simple on this table, but in practical situation, it's pretty complex. For example, now with this item D, uh, we want only 100 items, which is net requirement is only 100 item. But what happens, supplier might only sell in a quantities of 400. So, or might be his lead time to supply is not only 1 week, but might be the 4 weeks. Maybe that item is coming from somewhere from China or from the US. So when, as a manufacturer, they need to consider all those combinations. They need to consider, okay, now the logistic cost is bit of higher from the US or from the China. So instead of, maybe ideally we require like 100 items per month, but then if we only require like 100 items per month, the logistic cost is way bit of higher. So let us order like for full year quantity. So then all those, or maybe something you are expecting in the week 1 or week 2, then probably you don't require to release any order, or maybe you are not carrying any safety stock, you don't release an order. So all those complexity comes into the picture. Sometimes because supplier tells you, okay, I'm not going to produce in the next 2 months because we have some maintenance issues, or our we expecting some labor strike, or might be some issues at the port where these goods get shipped. So those kind of marketing or the factors impact the MRP plannings, or those things need to be considered when you plan for the product. Any questions?
Yeah, and only I will like to add one thing. Now, if you see currently, if take auto industry, so it is happening like that. The demand of the cars are changing because of various reasons. So at one end, the forecast is changing, and at the other end, there are shortages. I think in the first session we talked about the semiconductor industry shortage. So if in this chart now, if suppose you consider C is semiconductor 200 required, and then supplier can give only 100, and then what will happen that you have to whole thing you have to adjust. So because you can produce only 100 cars, suppose they will give 102 per car, is then 50 only they can produce, and then whole planning become you have to go on changing as per requirement and availability of the material or capacity what you call. And this is the most critical thing today happening. It's the volatility is so much, and if there is volatility, this material requirement planning becomes so difficult, complex, and challenging. And today supply chain is facing maximum problem in supply chain is this. I'll give you my example. In our company, we have different initiatives, digitization, sustainability, and all, but buyers are not ready to even listen. Suppliers are not ready to reply on that, and because everybody is chasing the material, and then they are chasing the material buyers, then planner has to go on changing the whole material requirement planning sheet based depending on the availability of the material. So this is that way very very important, complex. Fortunately now there are tools available, so you don't have to do manually. But I remember 30 years back you have to do everything manually, and it was really painful. And of course the speed was little less that time, I will say. But today the speed is so fast for whole things. And then it's really dynamic. What Mohan is showing is just the concept, so it
Yes.
looks simple.
Yeah.
But like one car will have thousands of parts, and then Kedar mentioned that each models there will be variations. And then the one part is not there, you will not be able to make the car. So that's the challenge. Any questions on this? Any comments or your thoughts? I think Mr. Pathak has joined. He's just
Yeah, very sorry. Actually, I again today missed it a little late.
okay. We are talking on material requirement planning, basically
Right.
operationally how it works. Mohan explained just now.
Yeah.
Okay, Mohan,
Yeah.
please continue.
So I just
Uh,
want to ask you, as you said, out of so many parts, if really one part or a set of components from a particular supplier is getting delayed, uh, what counteraction industry take?
Oh, there is a one option generally we take is the second sourcing. So generally you have the backup source. Suppose you are buying from that. Of course, it may not be possible for everything, but dual sourcing is the one risk preventive action industry takes. And it sometimes happens like the lead time is going to be 10 days and you want the part today, then you just ask your buyer to go and sit at the supplier place and make it happen. That is the another way you can see. Third thing is, if really because you have to ultimately see the utilization of the your whatever machines are there or assembly line is there. In that case, how much possibility to produce the other parts or other products where you have the material, and can you adjust the planning uh, within the on the monthly basis, suppose. Then you have to prepone the manufacturing of the some other products where parts are available, so that because you can't do that. One thing is you are not able to produce the products, at the same time your utilization is also plant utilization is getting affected. So you have to do that. These are the different actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even
Thank you.
you using safety stock is probably the first one within four walls, and then
Yeah, yeah.
as
Oh, Kedar, I
Doc-
did not mention safety stock because at least our company works on. We are also automotive component manufacturer, but zero inventory,
zero
and
inventory. Okay.
it's like a really tough. And but yes, first thing is I agree with you. Safety stock is one of the things. Yeah.
Nice. Because even with JIT, even we were also working on just in time, like Toyota Production System way, but there were so many shortages, material shortages, that we had to do a risk planning where we saw which components were affecting us the most, and then what were the lead times, and if the lead time was, let's say, 1 week, and then how many transports, like how many trucks were we getting for that 1 week, for that demand, 1 week's of demand. If it was just one truck per week, then we kept the safety stock in this logic that if we miss that one truck, then we need to have one truck's worth of inventory in house in the building, so that so we have that risk covered. That's so that safety stock covered the transportation risk, the transportation misdelivery risk, and then like that for each component within the bill of material that's shown on the right hand side, we could calculate it. and we could say with certainty that for our customer we're covering this the risk of missed deliveries for these critical components only. And so we didn't keep safety stock for all the parts, only the critical components, and only for 1 month missed delivery, and that was in our contract with the customer. So I mean, that's your first line of defense. And then secondly, on the procurement side, as uh, uh, both Dr. Manoj and Mohan are saying, dual sourcing and all that ties in for those critical components as well. Not all bill of material, all the supplies within the bill of material can be dual sourced, because that will come out to be expensive as well. Because when a supplier is not a sole source supplier, then they will increase the price because they're getting less of demand and they need more money. So it's at least that was my experience.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
one question here,
Mhm.
that on whom the onus goes on. Suppose you need a buffer stock for a month.
Okay.
Okay. So whether you delay the payment or you make the payment terms accordingly, so that though the stock for the month is there, but you pay him with a more credit period, or you pay him as per the normal period, or and you take the load of that finance or payment on you.
So I just like to add, there are depends upon how you contacted with the supplier and who has the negotiation power. Is that, for example, if the supplier is sole supplier and he has that patented product, probably you would not able to negotiate on the payment terms. He probably would get the advance payment for each and every items he sells to you. Or maybe, you are the market leader for that particular product and there are plenty of products available in the market, and then you can get from anyone. So probably in that case, you dictate the negotiation terms or the contract terms, and you said, okay, maybe my payment terms is 90 days or the 120 days, and there will be still penalties if you miss my one of the shipments, like that. From the supplier side, he also says, if I'm selling in bulk quantity to the one of these, like to you, or you are just like 5% or the 10% of the his overall business, then probably he would not really care. Okay, it like even I lose you, it doesn't matter for him because it's just like 1 or 2% of his overall business. So it's all depend upon the supplier customer relationship, what is their portfolio, how they are supplying each other, what is their contract terms, what is the product into it, what is the market for that product, what is the market situation for that product. So all those are factors are driving the discussions, but generally more or less many times it is governed by the contract terms between these two parties, and they are
Okay,
legally
thank you.
binding to each other.
Uh,
Rohit is raising a hand.
Rohit is raising the hand, but before that, just Rohit, just a minute. Bhagyashri said keeping buffer time for order is beneficial in terms of inventory. I think just now we discussed, and inventory cost is critical. We will discuss on inventory furthermore. And Jagdish is saying reorder level and critical order level are some parameters, I guess.
Yes.
Uh, so
So that are the Jagdish, that are the part of inventory planning. I will take. There are some
that
slides
he
on
will
this
take.
topic. Yeah.
And Rohit, what do you want to say? Can you please?
Yeah, Manoj, I was just going to respond to the question regarding how to avoid a shortage. So
Mm-hmm.
you talked about dual sourcing. The other angle to look at is basically possibilities to substitute the product or to substitute the component with a alternative
Yeah.
material, alternative
Yes.
chip. The
Yes.
only caveat there is, in order to do that, you need a multi-stakeholder engagement, and depending on industry in which you're participating, you may require a customer approval, or you may
Yeah.
require a
Exactly.
regulatory approval. But
Yes.
that is another way to.
Yes, it happens, but only thing, as you said, engineering, and then sometimes customer. Nowadays, I think auto requires anyway customer approval. But in this case, I know that in the last few months it happened. For example, I will say we are using nylon 66 plastic. It's the glass filled plastic, 30% glass filled, and then there was some problem in that. Then you go to, you have the other grade we had was 35%. Generally two are different part numbers, but we allow, then customer allowed to use that 35% one which was available, because in this case 30% was not available. So it happens. Yeah, that was the good point, that we can have alternate material or alternate product, a part for as a substitute. Yes, good.
I will
I'm
just
just
like.
skipping.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just putting one question. You may answer anywhere during the course.
Mhm.
Uh, Say, we get to read the news, especially in automobile, that certain batch is called off, which was actually sold in the market, and there are certain challenges, might be sometimes related to filter or maybe some other component and something happening. So what I wonder is the manufacturing process and approvals, everything is so established. In spite of that, these situations arise. What would be the reason for that? So at any appropriate time, you may answer that.
Okay, okay. I will
Mm.
take that one at the end, and I will also share one of the things which we went through on the return products, and it's a bit of a nightmare for us. Uh, so just to like to add about this lead time and other things. So one of my example. So I was working for one of the packaging company back in India. I think it's like 2011-12. So if you know, we were sourcing the master batches. So what do you mean the master batches? Is it something the polymer which gives color to the any plastic component? So if you want to have the black color or blue color or purple color, let's take example of the conditioner bottles or the shampoo bottles which you get from the market. So depending upon the various color of the closure or the bottle, you need to have that colored master batches from the supplier. So our machines were like German made, and those machines like recommended, they recommended kind of a Clariant is one of the company who's into the leading master batches manufacturer. Now they have sold their business, but initially they were the kind of a leading in the India and like overall. Now, for us, like we are really taking very like 2 to 3% of the Clarion's master batches, because from the color perspective, we require very small volume, maybe, and our requirement is so varied that we cannot like it's sometimes light blue, dark blue, black, golden, silver, so many different type of master batches. Might means many cases what happened, Clarion used to say like in a packet of 25 kg, and we used to require like 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg of master batches, and then rest of this stock was like lying with us unless our customer places the order next time. So those are the challenges which we always face during that time. And now our company was like a big company, but it wasn't as big as Clarion. So we never able to negotiate those terms with the Clarion. Okay, can you please give us like 2 weeks of lead time or 3 weeks of lead time? Never. Clarion used to have their fixed schedule of the production of the current master batches. And whenever we used to place the order, sometimes 4 weeks or 5 weeks they used to give these master batches to us. Since our products were like into the falling into the FMCG category, which is like fast moving consumer goods, our customers were not ready to have such a long lead time. And there were many discussions happen within our company, like can we go for the substitute master batches? But then there was raised constant raised by our engineering item, saying that we has to use like recommended master batch, which is Clarion. Otherwise, then our machines will fall apart, or there will be more breakdowns. We will increase the scrap. So many discussions happens with the R&D and other things. Finally, we could find out one of the reliable supplier. We took trials many months, that discussion and that process worked on. And then finally, after the 1 years of hard work paid off, and then we could really, everyone agreed that okay, this new supplier, which is the quality of the master batches is good and there is no harm to our machineries, and we can start using. So then we slowly moved from the Clarion to the new supplier, and where our lead time was reduced drastically from like 5 weeks to 1 week or 1.5 weeks maximum. They used to, whenever we used to place the order, they used to supply in 1 week of time. So those things comes into the picture when it comes to the substitute product, or having like shortages of the product, or our supplier is not able to supply in our lead time. Okay, so just moving to the now next one, in inventory planning. So I think that which we can discuss about the your stuff, whatever questions you raised. So what are the objectives of the inventory planning? So with inventory investment, we can achieve higher customer service level. So it means we can sell more and more product and whatever time when customer asks. It helps us to increase our revenue. It reduces the cost because we probably have less changeover when it comes to the manufacturing. We can rely, even our forecast is not accurate, probably in case of over forecasting or under forecasting, we can use this inventory to our sales, and then improve on working capital with the optimum inventory planning. What are the key matrices of the inventory planning? So as we are inventory carrying the inventory, like it means like we are investing in the our dollar or our money. So there is a carrying cost, there is a ordering cost, there is a lead time, shelf life of the inventory, because we cannot order too much unless it is not going to consume. Probably we need to throw it out. Then many companies are monitoring how many items are like slow movers or no movers. They have their own definitions of the slow mover, no mover. For example, if as in for the vegetable or the farm products, for example, tomato, probably the shelf life is less than a week, where like the if it is get sold by one of the like DMart or Reliance Mart or any seller, they might be selling okay how many uh, what means the percentage of the my items are likely to be expired in next 2-3 days, and shall I order more or less. Depending upon those, he takes those decisions how much I'm spending on my inventory as compared to my sales. So those are the various key matrices of the inventory. And then number of inventory, number of stock, like what is the value of the stock I'm holding as compared to the my days of supply. So how it's calculated generally, what is the inventory on hand and what is my daily usage. If I'm, for example, if I'm holding 100 inventory and my daily usage or my daily sales is 20, then probably it means like I'm holding 5 days of inventory. So depending upon the product portfolio, company decide to keep raw material or the finished good inventory depending upon their sales and their daily uses, daily consumptions, and many other factors which I just explained. Yeah. Now let's understand what are the various types of inventory. So when we start to talk about the raw material or the packaging material or the components or the MROs, MRO stands for maintenance, repair, and operational things. For example, your nut bolts, screws, or oils, lubricants, all those things generally used for the machineries, lab supplies generally. So all those falls under the categories. So we have inventory which is called raw material, packaging material, which are generally sourced from the suppliers. Then it comes to the manufacturers or the producer, which they hold like raw materials or the WIP or like work in progress or the semi-finished inventory, finished good inventory. And then it goes to the distribution warehouse where we hold the packaged goods or the bulk packaged goods, finished goods. And then again, when it goes to the retailers, generally they hold the finished goods or the this MRO things like packaging or repackaging they need to do. So so these are the different types of inventory generally available in the industry. And something which is I'm sorry, something which is into the pipeline, which means like we have order to the our supplier, and it has not reached to the our site. It's called like in pipeline or in transit inventory. I hope we are clear with the like what are the various types of inventory we are talking about. Now I gone bit of details rather than going aggregate inventory management. I took the topic like itemized inventory management because this is something kind of an interesting one to understand, and it helps to understand about the how we should be managing. So generally, inventory is classified. Many industries are using like ABC classification, which is how it is defined. They're like A items which are like high in value, but they are low in volume. So, for example, if industries will classify for the car industry might classify their engines are like A group items, probably B group items they may classify as a tires or sitting arrangement, and then C group they might classify as like accessories, all those accessories as a C group items where they require in a huge number, but as compared to the whole inventory they constitute only 10 to 20% of the value. It helps us for the manufacturer or producer to focus on the key items, how they maintain it in terms of the storing, material handling, putting the labor, in terms of getting the from the supplier. So this is one of the classification. Some suppliers or some manufacturers they can also classify like XYZ, or they can say okay, if I want to classify inventory, probably the items which have a highest lead time or which are very delicate to handle, they can classify them as a, and then other type like B and C or maybe XYZ. So these are the generic or with a very logical thing companies are using to classify their inventory. Similarly, someone was talking about in the last session, if their product is likely to phase out, and how they will replenish or they will not replenish. So maybe they can classify their like independent items like based on ABC. A might be the high runner items, B might be the medium to low runner items, and C be something items which are they likely to phase it out. So they use those concepts depending upon the product and portfolio, how they want to manage it. It's up to the individual, and the management decides how they want to manage their inventory. Any questions on this? Okay. Moving to the next one. Then there are various concepts like safety stock, which we talked about. So to cover the stock out, so our line should not stop. Cycle stock is all about like additional inventory required to cover the demand, which is awaiting the replenishment. Anticipation is the kind of inventory which generally companies build to cover the seasonal demand. For example, now Christmas is coming, so many supermarkets are generally building the stock of the chocolates. Or for example, on a time of like Valentine Days, many flower sellers they build the stock of roses or the those things. So they expect because the demand will go high as compared to the normal demand. Or during the Diwali festivals, sweet homes they generally build this stock of the sweets, so that they expect like inventory, the sale will be a bit of higher as compared to the normal things like that. So those are called like anticipation in inventory. In transit inventory, we talked about something which is in the pipeline, and then no mover, which is like we have the stock and there is no demand for that stock. It's basically dead stock, which our company are defining. Are we clear on the topic or the definitions, terms? Any questions, concept?
I have a point to add, Mohan.
Yeah,
To
go ahead, Kedar.
so just what you discussed in the last two slides. Um, so you Mohan discussed that there are two ways of defining inventory as well. So the safety stock, cycle stock, anticipation, in transit, and no mover is defining inventory, how it's used. And on the previous slide, you defined inventory on based on flow. So
Yes,
basically, how it flows into the manufacturing system and out of the manufacturing system, and what are the components of inventory that way. So this inventory is classified as per flow, and the second slide inventory is classified as per um, its functions. So
yes,
like safety stocks function is to cover the stock out. So cycle stocks function is to cover the demand while awaiting replenishment, etc. So the inventory can be defined in multiple ways. And also, the second point I wanted to make was that ABC grouping is based on that Pareto principle,
yes, yes,
roughly. That you would like Pareto had was an economist who came up with the observation that 20% of the inventory account for 80% of the dollar amount on the or the value, or vice versa. 80% of and so basically those 20% are the most valuable items to look at if you want to do to maintain a high level of like meeting customer demand service levels. Then you need to classify them as A class and do a cycle count every month for 100%
yes,
of these A class items, for example. um, so cycle counting is a way of ensuring your inventory accuracy is high. So you classify it this way so you can send your team out to count the A classified parts and B classified parts at a certain interval, and C classified parts once every year or something like that. So that's what we did. And those are
yeah,
the only 2 points I wanted to add.
yeah.
So awesome.
Thanks, Kedar. So it's all depends upon, in a nutshell, it all depends upon how you value your inventory, what important you want to give to the inventory, and then it helps you to decide to allocate the resources. For example, if you're talking about the nuts and bolts and washers, generally probably you do not want to employ kind of a labor to pay him, give him like 1,000 rupees and ask him, okay, can you please count me how many washers and nut bolts I have? Nobody, it doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah.
But
No.
probably you would get 10,000 in 1,000 rupees, like you replenish whole your stock. So those are logical things companies are using, or the procurement manager, the supply chain managers are using in defining or this classification ABC or XYZ whatsoever. And just
Uh,
coming back to the
Mohan,
yeah,
okay, go ahead, go ahead.
just talk like what Kedar has added, like Pareto. So he was like economist, and he was like from the Italy, and at that time, like how it comes to the supply chain. For example, this Pareto analysis or the Pareto concept. So at that point, I think it was somewhere 1930s or 1940s. What he observed, like in Italy, um, all the land or the all the wealth are held by the 20% of the people, and they are holding 80% of the land or the wealth of the whole Italy. So he observed all those things, and he brought this Pareto, and which is now become very popular in defining, or the in not in inventory management but many other things, like they are defining like how the wealth is distributed within the country, and how it is, the distribution of overall the assets or the wealth or many other things. Yeah. Thanks, Dr. Manish, you can go ahead.
No, one point here is raised, and it's very interesting. Is some industries may classify raw material on the basis of expiry date, hazard storage challenges, maintaining ambient temperature, humidity for the raw material. So that's the point is of shelf life
Yes, yes,
and how it is related to inventory. I think Mohan, you can explain. Your in material may require shelf life.
yes.
Anyways, yeah. So how shelf life and inventory, how important shelf life of the part for considering inventory.
Yeah. So what happened? Like I'm into the chemical industry, so we are into the manufacturing of the crop protection chemicals, generally insecticides, pesticides, and herbicides. So when we buy the product generally, and chemical products doesn't come like when we buy from our suppliers, they doesn't sell it in like 200 liter or 400 liter. We generally buy in a kind of 20,000 liter or 30,000 liter, depend. Even our requirement is like 10,000. Probably we buy because the supplier said, okay, if you want to buy my product, I'm gonna give you only in a lot size of 20,000 liter, which same thing I explained in the MRP concept. Depending upon the lot size, which is like lot for lot or lot size, uh, your scheduled receipts or net requirements get delivered. So for us, when it gets product, probably we consume 10,000 liters in the first year and 10,000 liter in the second year. But then um, when it comes to the, again, we want to use, we always take the shelf life, because if there is no shelf life available, we cannot use these products. Our chemical industry is highly governed by the regulators. As I like, if you know, I'm working in the UK and in European Union, they have a very, very high standard of the regulators about the what kind of products you should be using, what should be the shelf life. And our customers also very, very, very cautious about, like, when they buy our product, probably they do not want to buy the product which are manufactured like 6 months ago. They are just trying to see if we are producing like the product which are produced like less than 3 months, like that. So there are a lot of education the customers are having about the products, and that's all driving those factors about the shelf life and other things. Similarly, to be given an example in India about the food products, probably which has a very, very short shelf life. So when someone want to sell those products, they also ensure that they don't buy too much or too low, and then end up in like in no mover or throwing those inventory and then investing their money. Because as I mentioned, inventory is all about like investing your money and then getting the profit. Right amount of inventory, ensuring the customer service level, and then you get the profit. And too much of inventory doesn't help. So you need to ensure that all the time, like, you have the optimum inventory levels.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it becomes obsolete, and then you have to eat that cost.
Yes, yes. It impacts the profit and loss. Probably many people has lost the job because of improper
Oh,
management.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had an interim job as management of obsolete. I mean, obsolescence management. That was one of my for 6 months. I was doing that just because we were like something got phased out, and then we used to hold that stock to build the product, and now you have to manage that obsolescence somehow because it's a very expensive part. How do you do that? So we had to take uh, we have to negotiate with the customer that we have to run out all the stock. So before you make that change, we need advance notice, at least so many days of supply worth of notice, so that we can run it out. If the customer said no, you have to meet it in the within the week, then the customer had to take the cost of obsolescence because the supplier wouldn't want to take it. So it was, I mean, obsolescence is a big topic in in our
Industry,
industry.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, depending upon again the product value and what is the inventory value. So if as I mentioned over here, like percentage value of the slow more or no more as a comparator. So these are one of the KPI. So for example, I'm working as an inventory manager for my company. So all my discussions and my all most of my bandwidth is managing the inventory at aggregate level. What are our slow movers and no movers, and then ensuring those get diluted, or maybe if it is not required, then I need to check with the finance. Can we do the write off, and then it's going to impact our PNL. So those are very, very hard discussions happens every month with the leadership team, and then ensuring that we do not, or we reduce as much as possible this obsolescence of the inventory. So there's a very, very tight so management sees a very through this lenses, like it should not happen, and then it should not, company should not end up in the losing their the profit. So inventory is one of the key important topic in the supply chain. I think we talked about this classification. Yeah. Now let's what are the different techniques are used in the itemized inventory management? So first technique, like fixed order quantity. So what happens in this concept, like we order the customer, the we as a like supplier, we order every time the fixed quantity. Our time might varies depending upon the requirement. So for example, you see in the graph, in week one, we order 5 quantity, and then in week 3 again we order the 5 quantity, then week 4 5 quantity, so like that. So depending, it's all the time order quantity remains same, but the timing of the order varies. So this is also one of the concept. Other one is like lot for lot. It means like order quantity is directly related to the demand. So in first sphere, where our order quantity is always 5. In second terms, uh, timing might vary. The demand might vary. Might be in first week someone can order 10. In third week it may order 15. Depending upon the sales or the consumption of the inventory, this technique is used. And it also again depend upon what is the value of that inventory. Are we can afford to lose the sales, or can we afford to miss the production? So it depends again various other factors, like what is important, like losing our capacity is important. Maybe losing the capacity is costly, or maybe sometimes like if the inventory is costly, probably capacity is not that costly as per the as compared to the inventory. Probably you would lose the capacity and then wait for the inventory to come, and then we ensure that we have the optimum level of inventory. In then some cases, like order for end period, like customers or the manufacturer decide, okay, I need to have like for next 5 weeks of inventory, or maybe what it mean, like I should order the quantity which could cover my 5 weeks of production or the sales. And so that's kind of one of the concept, like how it need to be ordered. I hope it is clear to the audience. Any questions on the first, like how much to order? Right, I mean in day to day life we order the same thing, we do the same thing, like and we don't like order, we also use those concepts in day to day life. If we want to buy something from the shop, from the retailer, our local retailer, like that. uh
Y- Yeah, it's like the Kanban system. I have an example for that. Like what Mohan you're saying exactly. Like if we have only one bag of flour left, then we always keep a full bag.
yes.
And once that bag is over, so we have a two-bin Kanban system, and then in the kitchen. So when that one bag is empty, you always have one to keep your production of chapatis going on, and then you get time to go buy another bag of flour to keep in stock. So that's a two-bin Kanban system uh, with a reorder point of one.
Yes.
So one is over, and then you order another one. Yeah, that's it.
I would just like to someone from the audience can they share the examples? If I mean, they can share from their day to day life or from their industry experience. What kind of they are using, like how much to order, or maybe when to order, those kind of things. They can share the example. Anyone like to go?
Actually, it's just may I talk?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Basically, if we in Singapore, there are only two shops who can provide the Maharashtrian food basically. So we have to order them according to their consignment is coming, because once the stock is available in the Singapore, it's immediately within 1 week it's finished. So we always need to order the things according to their consignment. So we do that. And basically, during this Corona period, we face a lot of issues in that. It's like they order some Diwali stuff, which came after Diwali. So here, basically, we are means keeping the inventory depending on means we can say the logistic or the transport.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Bhageshri. And then we can move forward like when to order. So order point, like order is placed when inventory falls below specific level. For example, minimax, like when we, let's take example of day-to-day basis. Probably when we say, okay, our milk can is the milk is only sufficient for tomorrow's tea or coffee. Probably we go to the supermarket and today evening and then buy another milk can. So we decide like when we need to order the milk, like that. So that's a kind of order point. And it varies like how much to order. If you are expecting some guests tomorrow, probably we might, even we have the inventory and we know like there are some guests are coming, probably we go and then buy the additional amount of milk. Periodic review, so like fixed
Just
order. So yeah.
I have already put one comment there in the chat.
uh, Kedar, can you read please, just to audience, because I'm presenting, I cannot see the comments or any of your putting. You can either like speak it out, or maybe Kedar, Manoj can help me.
Okay, I can speak out.
Yeah,
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 you
yeah,
can speak
sure.
out,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the comment I have put is, suppose a manufacturer going safe prefers supply against orders. Okay,
Mhm,
so because always we can't talk about the large scale companies and the things. Even the MSMEs and startups, they have their own challenges.
mhm,
So I am considering that. So a manufacturer going safe prefers supply against orders,
mhm.
and he gets a rate contract, or vice versa, suddenly a rate contract which was there is discontinued, and now he prefers to play safe and switch over as supply against orders.
Okay.
So how we can take this into consideration of this discussion about the inventories and the kind of business challenges uh, we can talk about.
Mm, I will tell again my company's example. Like you have mentioned here, supply against orders. So our company wants to do supply against order, and then again orders customer don't give enough time, and all those things happens, and then then always dispute about there is a some forecast, annual forecast, but we found that it's a 30% is the accuracy rate of the 1 year forecast. If you take the immediate 2 months forecast, it goes to up to 50 to 60%. So we called in our planning team, always call as a rush orders, and it's always this rush orders. And in there is so it's mainly at one end, supply against orders. We don't have to keep inventory. In our company, there is no warehouse. 30,000 people are there in China plant, but no warehouse. Of course, no warehouse means you are keeping something, and parts are directly coming to the assembly lines. We have around 600 assembly lines in China. Our one plant has 600 assembly lines. We make small motors, electric motors. I'm just explaining to have you idea how it works. And then what happened? There is so much pressure on planning team. Now, in the other hand, there is no digitization that now it is happening, but till maybe last 4 years back, not much digitization. So there was huge planning team, almost having hundreds of people in planning, because we are making almost say 10 lakh motors per day. 10 lakh motors per day. You don't have to keep inventory. You have to make as per order, supply against orders. Otherwise, you can't release the purchase order only to the components if there is no the that side order is there. And then whole pressure on planning team. Now we are looking in different ways. Should we make the stock to make as a to stock? Should we keep some inventory? Of course, post COVID, whole inventory concepts are also changing. Many companies just in time and all was there, and then global sourcing and all. So now we have different concepts are coming up, like you can say localized buying is one of the things. And but currently this is the situation in our company, at least. And our company is what, around 2.5 billion USD, which is among first 100 top automotive component manufacturers in the world, our rank is around 80 to 85. So this is the one situation. So you can imagine how people are dealing with inventory. I will consider this is the global company, much matured company and all. Still, people, at least I feel that we are thinking in the old way. We are changing now. But whole this for this discussion, the point is there is a lot of pressure on planning team, and it's hundreds of people are there in that. We are trying to reduce those people. Digitization is one, and another thing is little bit stock we are going to keep and all. So that's the way it works. Anybody wants to share anything else, their experience or thing?
Just to add, Dr. Manoj, as like I think Pathak you asked the question, right? If I'm not wrong, I couldn't
Yeah.
see. Yeah, yeah. So when the customer or the supplier changes their contractual terms, and then they said, okay, I will only supply based on the order. So look, those changes are generally market driven. What is the volatility, or what is the market is asking? What is going on the market? How it is impacting? It looks, everyone want to protect their profit margin. Everybody wanted to have like more and more profit, and everybody wanted to protect their market establishment, or everybody wanted to secure themselves from the this volatility. Might be earlier when this contractual terms had, maybe the market was quite stable, and now the COVID situation, it's become so low volatile, and then he do not wanted to keep the inventory, because unless someone has agreed to take a risk, okay, even you do not buy tomorrow, if I'm holding the stock, then probably he would end up like losing his profit. So in those case, definitely it makes sense, like to like more collaboration will help with the supplier and the buyer. So okay, if you're gonna supply a guest only order, and that might impact my business, probably I would have a different contractual terms with him, asking him, can you please ensure that you always support my order on time with hundreds percent OTIF. Might be you can the company can offer some the price or the price benefit because of the 100% assurance to the adherence to this schedule. No, those things can be taken into the while making the contract. You can also give him risking, like if you keep some stock of or the additional stock of my supplies, probably, and at the end of the year, I probably, if I could not take it, probably I will bear the cost. Those kind of discussions has to be taken care, or you can include those costs into the in the cost which has been agreed while supplying the product. So those things has to be taken into the consideration. I will just
Yeah.
like to give an example. So in when I was working in the packaging company, to produce, so we used to produce the tubes which generally used for the cosmetic purposes. For example, cold cream or the face wash or the face cream. Now the tooling which used to require to produce those tubes in the machinery are quite costly. Those are like costing like huge amount of money, and those many times it is important because at that point of time India did not have that technology. And to the Unilever was one of the main customer, their Fair and Lovely brands and the Pierce brand. So we used to supply those tubes to them. Dove, the other brand. So when we used to do a contract with them, we used to say, okay, if we are gonna buy this tooling for you, then you need to agree. Okay, probably you would buy like 1 million tubes in a year, in a full year, and every year you probably give us some percentage. So probably if the cost of the tube is agreed, let us say 1 rupees, probably we would include like 10 paisa of that tooling cost with the in the tube, and then we will probably sell you at like 1 rupees 10 paise, and then give those money through this kind of the volume of the tube. So those mutual agreements or the coordination has to be taken between the buyer and supplier. It has a specific word, I forgot now, but those kind of things are generally used in those kind of situations. I hope I could answer your question query.
Yeah, yeah.
And one more thing, like up till now we are talking on inventory. We used to have SNOP, sales and operating planning, but now the term which people are using is SIOP. It's an integrated sales, inventory, and operation planning. So, so inventory is been added because SNOP you might have heard already, and SNOP is basically sales and operations planning. They used to have number of years it was, but now latest one is sales, inventory, and operations planning, SIOP. More or less it is the similar, but more focus on inventory is being given now in this SIOP term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Just a time check.
Yeah, yeah.
Mohan?
Okay.
Yeah.
So just periodic review, one of the like when to order. So we generally review like what is the maximum we like to have, and then what we check like hands-on we currently have, and then order the rest of the quantity. Visual review, two bin system or Kanban system. Generally, it they keep like inventory in two bins, and one bin is finished. Then probably they order for the other bins. So those are the basic concepts we use. And I think this is the last one on the itemized inventory management. So as I mentioned earlier, like economic order quantity. So everyone wanted to. So in when we order, there are two costs. One of the as I mentioned, one is like ordering cost and then inventory carrying cost. So economic order quantity is the concept which gives the balance between two this between the ordering cost and the carrying cost. So if you see in the arrow over here, so this is the point where, for example, okay, I could not give you the legend over here. But one cost, like example, the orange, the purple one is a inventory carrying cost. So as long as you are carrying this inventory, the carrying cost goes on increasing. Uh, the other one is like the ordering cost. Probably you order initially, and then as inventory depletes, it's goes low. So this concept basically tells you how much to order so that you balance those costs, and then ensure that you do not end up or you save the cost for the organization. And there's a basic formula which I mentioned over, like is like annual demand, the order cost per unit, and then the I is the carrying cost. So when you keep the inventory, the carrying cost, one need to store at a proper place. So one need to ensure that it doesn't get stolen, or it doesn't get any damage. So you need to, there is some cost for it, that so that comes into the carrying cost, says the cost of the inventory per unit. Order cost is something, the administrative costs, because you to order to the supplier or to the unit of people, unit of systems, unit of unit some administrative things like calling to the suppliers, or to your telephone expenses or system expenses. All those are generally considered in the order cost. And that's the annual demand, which is like how much the demand. So if you see this formula, like square root of all those things will give you the order quantity. So that's about the inventory management. So I think this was the last one from me. Anyone has any questions, or maybe we can talk about
I think it's already we have 1.5 hours, but
yeah.
there is a one I saw one comment about whether we are going to talk about scheduling and capacity these parts. So I think, but today we may not have that time, but next time if we can continue, and then we will have the scheduling capacity, and then bullwhip effect or some more about inventory we can have. Mohan, you can share this presentation to all participants this time, because both the
Yes, yes.
sessions we have
I will
covered.
share the
And
presentation.
and then let's see. Then next time we may have something about whatever any other top points are pending. Uh, we have not given, actually last time we had told we will give some assignment or something to talk. This now both the sessions are covered. This topic is at least basic concepts we have covered. So we will give something to for 5 minutes, if you can prepare something, and then next time let us have everyone talk on their views or their concepts based on the case study. No, it will not be case study, but just one topic and talk on that. We will send it by tomorrow, and then we will see whatever pending things or any pending common topics are there in this, and we will go ahead that way. Any
Yeah,
yeah, Kedar.
yeah,
Some
yeah. I've prepared something on lean logistics for next time also.
okay,
So that can take a short bit of time, half an hour, 40 minutes,
okay,
and we can that will take us to like operational level of and tie it to the how we did the master scheduling and MRP, and now
yeah.
how it translates to the shop floor, and then how do you control it at shop floor level? So nuts and bolts of like
I
logistics.
think that will be good because the question about scheduling, and there we can cover capacity,
Yeah.
various aspects of capacity also. But
Yep.
today this is the most I think in supply chain.
Mm.
It's a challenging task, and because of that, actually, so much complexities are there. So it's interesting also. So